Hey YouTube, this video will be on how to do a stairs project if you've never done one before. I'm going to show you this project, and it took me, it's going in the third week. I still have a few steps to do, not steps, but a few processes left in the whole thing. And yeah, we'll just start off here. So basically, these are metal spindles. As you can see, they're square. So you have to you have to drill holes using a regular drill. Bear with me. Get my tools so you can see if I can find my drill. So here's a, incidentally, I just bought all these Ryobi tools. They were having sales on a lot of them. They came in amazingly handy, especially for doing any jobs. I'm not a licensed carpenter or anything like that. I just like doing how-to videos to help people when they're trying to do their own projects. Anyway, I bought a lot of these tools to do this project. I'm going to show you some of them as we go through. So this is a, sorry, trying to get it focused, what they call a Forstner bit. So this is what I used to, I put it on an extension because some of the stairs stuck out a little further. And what I mean is, you know, if the square that I had to drill the hole was really close to the step, because of the width of this, I couldn't get in there and do it. So I had to buy an extension just so I could do it. Anyway, because I'm not a professional, I'm also going to show you my mistakes. So, okay. So I have a few plugs here, and the reasons why was, for whatever reason, when I started this project, this first flight, all of them were off. All the rest of the flights, there's 4 of them, were not. They were right on. So I actually had to drill holes. As you can see, these were the existing ones. And if I didn't do that, the existing one would line up either right on the step or right under the step. So what I had done is I tried to keep the existing ones and the next one down, because it was going to line up right. I put it right here. Downside was, when you move one, you got to move the other one. Otherwise, you don't continue that gap that you need. So you don't make those mistakes. If you find yourself, the other thing is, these stair treads, these are maple. And I got the ones with a, trying to remember what it's called. Not a reveal, but it just extends past the risers. And depending on your stringers or skirt board, that's this right here, depending on that, how far this sticks out, the original stairs that were on here, they went to like right here. So these underside holes all lined up with it, or if the spindle, they were all wood before, if the spindle was going to land here, no big deal, because this was in more, like there was barely any overhang. But when you go and buy, you know, new stair treads, they come forward more, which looks nicer. All the risers, which is the white that you can see there, I used, try to find a little piece here. I mean, essentially this is it. It's just 1/4 inch. They come not pre-painted, but why can't I think of the term? Painted once. I can't even think of it. But you can see the thickness of it. Primed. Why can't I think this one's too early? They come primed, and you will have to cut them and also paint them to the size of your stairs. So if you look at these stairs, these risers are not as high as that last riser that goes to the landing. So they all have to be ripped which means just cut, you know, from one end to the other. They all have to be ripped and then cut on the sides. How do you get it so tight on the sides? Same with your stairs. They make, excuse me, this thing called the Stair Gauge. I just bought it at Home Depot. Don't mind the mess. Should have cleaned it up a little bit before I started, but I'm still working here. So you just get a piece of wood like this, any piece of wood, and this is a stair gauge. And essentially how it works, wish I had a stair that, let's pretend this is a stair right here. So how a stair gauge works is you set it on the stair. So you're gonna line this side up right on the side of the skirt board here. And you see we have a banister in the way. So you have to figure out this cut. Now here's what I consider a mistake here, and I'll show you upstairs. This is the way that the step was, so I just kind of followed that pattern. What I wish I had done is just extended this here. And that's what I started to do on the next stairs up. Also, these treads are only so long, so I used the whole length. And there has to be another piece added on here, which I'm gonna do. And I saved, actually the piece that came off here, I saved, and I have it right here. So I'm gonna use this piece, and I'm gonna cut it just right so that it'll fit, not like this or whatever, but you get the point that I'm making. I'm gonna add it here, and that'll finish that off. I can also, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put another piece like this right here. So I'll figure out how to do it. Probably I'm gonna use this side because this is the rounded over edge in the corner here. So I'll cut this the long way like that, and it will meet right up with that, and it'll look like it was supposed to. I'll get something else for the other side. But again, you can only do what you can do. Again, this step was this long, and it had to meet that post over there. So like I said, I'll cut something to just go over that. And I just showed you the piece that I'm gonna use for here. So again, back to the stair tread gauge. None of your skirts are gonna be square. So you can't just cut a square when you're working with this all the way up. What you also have to do is, because of the reveal, I call it, I don't remember what the term is, you want it to line up as tight as possible to this side. So that means you have to take some off. If I remember right, I think they're 48 inches in length all the way. So you will have to take some off each end, and you have to measure, you know, where you want it to be. So how you would do that, you can measure with a measuring tape, or you can just use your stair gauge. And when you set it up in here, here, I'll show you. It won't be perfect, but you'll get the idea. So these just twist, slides around. I'm gonna set it up in here. So let's pretend that's a wall, this right here. So I'm gonna bring this, typically, you wanna bring this all the way up into the corner, and then you wanna make it tight like that. And you can feel the side of the step. So you want it to be nice and square in there. Once you have that nice and square, you tighten it. And this is like how you're measuring. Now you see that doesn't reach. So you want it, if that's the wall, you want it tight up against the wall. And this one also tight up against the wall. Now you can see a little gap there. So that's what you would have all around, and maybe more. So that's why these twist. Oops, wrong way. That's why these twist, so you can get this whole thing so you can work with it. So you don't want any gaps on either side like that.
So you got to keep messing with it until it's nice and square here. And it's nice and square here. So we'll get rid of that little gap there. Make sure there's no gaps here. And when you have no gaps on either side, that's the perfect measurement. So you just be careful, try not to move it, tighten it down. Still tight over here. I just moved it a little. Trying to do it with one hand, it's hard. So you get the idea. Then you take your whole stair gauge and you would put it on your piece of wood. Bear with me, I do have one. I used a track saw also to cut these. Maybe these have all nails or whatever. This one doesn't. So then you take your piece of stair tread. This is the crap that was on there, that first step, just pine. And you set this on there, and then you line it up with your piece of wood. Also, I wrote front or bottom. That always, because if you're walking around, this is 4 flights of stairs. And if you forget how you were orienting this, could have been like this or like this. I made this little thing so I knew I was always standing in front, measuring it like this. So this was always facing me. So when I come down to my piece of wood, that has to face me. So that way I didn't disorient it, because then you don't want to have to go all the way back up and start over again. So you just set it on your piece of wood until it lines up perfectly on both sides. And you start in the corners, the upper corners. So you want that because that's where you had it lined up. You want it lined up in the corners as best you can. There's no wall here, so the main measurement was here, and taking off enough so that this return, that's what it's called, is nice and tight up against that side. So the distance from here to here, you know, take that measurement, write it down, or just remember it, and then when you go to your piece of wood, it's going to be less than 48 inches. So you're going to have to take off, you know, if it's an inch, quarter of an inch, half inch, whatever it is, you're going to have to take that off, but you're going to do it in the shape of your stair gauge. So let's say this step was a little longer, because you can see that it is, how long it was with that extra piece. You're going to set it up so that, and you can see that it would be set up kind of like this. So you see how it's on the end? This is the rounded face. That's the square end that meets up with your risers. So that's always going to be as flush as it can be. And I'll tell you how to fix that. And you want this one as tight to where the skirt board would be as well. So both of those, that would be your measurement. If this is the end where there's no wall, works if there is walls too, then you needed to know that measurement, and then you cut the other end off at that angle. This matters where it's placed, because if it's not placed perfectly square, like it is, where both pieces are touching that flat end, then this cut will be wrong. So it has to be placed on that stair tread exactly like this in order to get that cut right. Then you cut that cut and you're good to go. Come back, try it out, see if it works. If it does, awesome. So underneath here, you're gonna have what's called stringers. And depending who installed the stairs before, there could be construction adhesive on it or whatever. You want to sand all that off if there is, because you're going to use construction adhesive again.
And I just did the stair project. I was going to do videos throughout the whole thing and piece it together, but I never do that with my videos, and you guys seem to do pretty well with them. So I'm just trying to explain and show mistakes so you guys don't make them along the way. So you'll put if you have to sand all the stringers that are in the middle, basically stringers look like this. They're cut like this. That's a stringer all the way down. And the stairs will rest on top of them. That is a skirt board. So it's not doing anything. It's not holding up anything. It's just to, look decorative. So again, these are stringers because you can see the stair is setting on it. Those are skirt boards on the side. So you'll have stringers. There'll be one here, and one on the other side that you saw over there. How I did the stairs is, fortunately I didn't have to sand anything off because they were just all nailed into the stringers. I don't use nails in mine. Essentially what I do is just use the construction adhesive. So once the stairs cut to the perfect dimension, then I'll just put the construction adhesive. By the way, I'll show you the best. Again, this is only the second set I've done, but first set of stairs that I did, anyway, it's Loctite Premium. This is awesome, and I'll explain. But once I, also, this caulking gun, insanely awesome, because I was using just, those orange ones in there, but I'm using like 2 hands trying to squeeze this stuff. This stuff is really thick and it comes out like that. Hard to get out using those old school ones. So I bought this Husky one. Again, I don't have no sponsors or anything, but just trying to help you guys. This has a couple, you can see high force or low. It was great because this stuff's so thick, you didn't have to use as much pressure to get it to come out. It just worked amazingly. Love this gun. So it's just a Husky. I got it at Home Depot. And again, if you go and try and get one, it has the high-low force. It's got like a rubber grip here too, which is really, it worked great. So anyway, you put all your construction adhesive on it. I do all the stringers, and then I do the front kick plate, riser, whatever you want to call it, and then I'll set the step on it. How I do this is I'll take a few stairs off, maybe not the whole thing, especially if people are trying to get up and down, couple stairs. And so if we're talking about this first one here, put the construction adhesive on. You will have to have had your riser on first, because then you're going to bring your stair close to it. And I'll explain. So the way you get not big gaps from the step to the riser is what I'm going to tell you I did. So put the construction adhesive on with that stair tread off, out of the way. You reach behind with a drill. I drilled pilot holes, just 2 screws. Drilled pilot holes because this maple is really hard to cut, drill, the whole thing. It's solid, and it's 1 inch thick. So you go behind this step, drill pilot holes, so you're drilling through the riser into the step. I did it on both sides of the middle stringer, and then I just shoved screws in there. Again, this skirt board will have to be on here, and then that pulls the step right to the skirt board. It works awesome. I didn't come up with that. I watched a video myself on YouTube on it. The guy was really good at stairs, and so I tried it, and it works great because it pulls the step really tight to the skirt board, or sorry, risers. That's a skirt board, sorry. So it pulls it up to the risers. So you'll have to cut your risers first, and also when you're cutting risers, it works exactly the same as you have to use the stair gauge. It'll just be up on end. So take a few steps off, 2 or 3, and then start measuring for the riser. And how you do that, you put it up against the riser, on that side, straight up. I'll show you. People like to see things. It won't be perfect because I have the balusters on. Essentially, it's going to be up like that, as tight as you can against here. And then this side, there won't be a step here. So you'll feel on the side, you want it to line up even with this right here, even with the stringer on the side. So there's not much of a gap. And you'll set this, you'll set that gauge so it's perfect with that. Again, you won't have a stair here, so it's out of your way. And tight on that side. Once you have that, tighten them down, bring it over to wherever you're cutting your risers, and you cut it perfectly. And again, if you buy one of these, you know, I just bought the ends. These are plastic. I'm actually ordering some metal ones, but make sure you write on your piece of wood. It's just an inch thick piece of wood, inch by an inch. You can use whatever you want. And just make sure you write the orientation on here. Great, I'm gonna have a million pop-ups. So that when you get back to where you're cutting, this always faces you. What the bottom, that meant the front of the step, and bottom meant the bottom, not underneath. But that was just my orientation, and I put the little arrows so that always faces me. You guys can do whatever you want, obviously. But that just always helped me when you're walking around. Remember, oh, which way was I holding this? Because you don't want to have to keep measuring. So that's how you measure for your risers. Again, put it really tight, facing up on that skirt board, all the way to the end with the other one straight up, and get it tight to the stringer, as tight as you can. Now you'll see, you know, there wasn't much I could do here. What I'm gonna do is just caulk all this, but you see it's only 1/4 of an inch. It's just decorative. It doesn't have to be structural. You already have the structural right here. So I just went for the decorative. Plus, if you went for like an inch of wood here for your risers, that's gonna push out each step even further from this overhang I was telling you about. So you don't wanna do that. Just get those decorative ones. They're not cheap. They're probably like 15 to 20 bucks a piece. But well worth it. They will look nice in the end. So that's how you measure for your stairs. Again, doing the sides, come out, make sure you measure from this corner here, from your stringer, all the way to your wall, get that measurement, or your skirt board in this case. Get that measurement because you want this to be as tight as you can to the side. And once you have that other side measurement using the stair gauge, you just cut that piece off, slide the whole thing in, make sure that it fits, and it should fit 100%. It might take you a bit. Your first cut, you'll be nervous. I was too. These things are expensive. These are $75 a piece, plus 3 coats of urethane before I even started. So the last thing you want to do is make mistakes. Another tip, saw blades spin up. So when you're cutting these, last thing you want is a lot of frayed edges on the side. So what I did is I would use my stair gauge, and I would use a razor knife instead of a pencil or anything. And let's say that was it. And I would take a razor knife, like this one right here, and I would score a line. Because it does it perfect, they do perfect lines, razor knives. I'd score a line. It's really hard to see. Then I'd move this out of the way, and then I would take that blue tape, I'd put it right on the line so that this is the piece getting cut off. And what that does is, because the blade spins up like this, just the tape holds the wood grains down, so you won't get any frayed edges coming up. And then you can just take the tape off right after. It's simple. That's just a little, you don't have to do that, but when you spend that much on stairs, last thing you want to do is ruin them by cutting them. And how, I was talking about a track saw. It's not the best. It's Evolution. Again, not sponsored. Worked well. I do want to get a different saw, like a Festool, or actually Ryobi's coming out with a new track saw. It's just not here yet. I wish that it was. The problem I have with this, so I even bought a Ryobi portable wet dry vac, and just takes a battery,
It's pretty lightweight, you know, has wheels, the whole thing. So I could carry it around this whole stair job. And I would take that hose and it connected perfectly right to here. Downside is, you see how this is all open right there? That you can see the saw blade? Basically, 80% of the sawdust just flies out of the front. Even with it sucking on the side, it still was just falling all over the place and making a huge mess, especially this stuff, which this is the risers. It's made of some sort of fine particle board, and it just was, it's everywhere. So the better track saws, that's mainly all closed off. So with any suction, it forces that stuff to come through and into your vacuum. Other than that, it's a great saw. It did do a great job. This, again, it's Evolution 250, 350, something like that. I can't really remember. I think I got it on Amazon. And it came with these tracks. This is 2 tracks put together. Came with a bunch of them. So that's 2 tracks put together. I'll show you on the back side. So it's just held together with these metal things. Take an Allen screw and you just slide them into each other, tighten them down. That's how you get them together. And a bunch of them. So when I had to rip, here's a perfect piece right here. When I had to rip the risers, I used this, that long track to do it, because this one, obviously, I'd have to keep moving it to get that. So I used the long track to rip them, and then to cut them, I used the short one, you know, to cut my angles. You just rest it right on there, put the tracks on it, cut across. And I used a small piece also to cut all my stair treads. Incidentally, I cut them all on this collapsible table. Literally right here. It was a mess, but it is what it is. Got the job done. So that's that scenario. So back to the stairs, pulling them all in, getting behind with the screws, and it sucks them tight. I did that all the way up. Now, when you get to this top step, because the flooring was already done, there's no way to reach behind and pull this step tight. So I had to get it as tight as I could, and then I had to use 4 nails. So I tried to put them, you know, in discrete areas. So I already explained to you what not to do for the plugs. And again, it was kind of almost impossible to not do. I wish I did it differently, but it isn't the end of the world. Also, I'll show you back on the plugs, not the plugs, so these are obviously square. Can't make a square hole with a drill bit, but the Forstner bit that I told you about, showed you, this bit again, this is the only one to use if you want to make perfect circular holes, because this little point at the tip will go right on your point that you want, and then it just goes straight down in and it makes a perfect circular hole. The tape on here is just so that that was the depth that I wanted to go to, not the whole thing. I only wanted to go to here. So when I saw the hole get to the blue tape, I would stop. And then I took this chisel, and you set it on the circle, and it has to be perfect on all sides of the circle. And I also used a, I don't know what you call this type of square, but just a square. So when I was lining it up, I set this on the edge of the return, and I brought it, you see that plug I'm using as an example, right to the plug, and then I would put my chisel square on that. So every one of them was as square as I could get, because the last thing you want is some of these spindles like turned so that you can see the angle of it. So you try and get them as square as you can, and that's how you do that. Tedious. But basically, then they sell boots. You see these little decorative things? They sell something that looks like that, goes on the bottom. It's definitely
a lot easier, but it doesn't look as nice. It's not as finished as a job. It's like that. You know, that looks way nicer. Again, and this is the only stair I had an issue with, and I was telling you about it because I like to be honest with you guys so you don't make mistakes, but all these lined up perfectly. And I didn't have to do anything to these holes except I did have to drill up more. So you can go up, this is like 2 inches, I think. So I went up to like 1.25 inches inside because they weren't very high at all. And by doing that, going up higher, that allowed me to be able to slide it up inside and then back down into the square hole. Without doing that, you'd have to remove all these railings, and that's a whole nightmare. I incidentally started to do that here. I'll show you after. And I was like, man, this is going to be horrible. I don't want to take all these apart. So I just figured out how deep these were, and I went up higher, and then I was able to slide them up. You see how it wiggles a little bit? Doesn't really bother you. You can take, and we may, don't know for sure or not, you can just put construction adhesive up in there and it will just be rock solid. You put a piece of tape there after you squirt it up in, put a piece of tape to hold any of it up, take the tape off the next day, call it a day. It will never move, but these aren't moving at all. These are, you know, rock solid down here. So did the same thing, drilled holes for all of them. How you do it, that's a whole nother tedious thing, but I found where they would line up. How do you do that? Not everybody's gonna have one of these. I bought it for a different job that I was doing at my house. And I installed some exposed beams. And sorry, I'm trying to unzip this with one hand. Bear with me. So it's a laser level. If you're gonna do this project and you're doing spindles or anything like that, you definitely want to get one of these. That's the name of mine. I can't remember how much I paid. It was either $250 or $350, worth every dime. That's what it looks like. I don't work for them either. Just showing you guys everything I can about this project. Here's the one that I have. It's amazing. So when you turn it on, you can see all the marks that it'll do. You know, this way, it goes all the way up. Hard to see in this lighting right now, but so what I did is I came over to every hole where I wanted to do it, and up in the, and you can see, I'm trying to get you to see. Oh, the phone's blocking it. See that line that's going up inside the spindle hole? Once you see a cross, just like that, up inside the hole, you know you got the line right. So wherever that's setting, you know, on your stair tread, if it was like this, and you look up in that hole and you get this cross mark right where you want it, you put a little dot right there on your stair tread and call it a day. And so what I did is I put tape, I just took it off today, tape on all these stair treads all the way up. And you can get that line. Again, these spindles are in the way, but you can get the line. You see, as easy as that. So once you get the first line and it's lined up, just put all the pieces of tape going all the way down. You know, just look at the distance you have here and try and get the tape, you know, close all the way up and down. And the reason I use the tape is so you're not making any marks on the stair treads. And then the tape, you know, just comes off after. Don't leave it on too long, because the longer you leave tape on, the harder it is to get off. I just used that. I was using blue, and then I was using white, just because the white was easier for me to see. But like I said, you want to line this up on your step and look up into your, I'm going to try and get this to shine at all. So it is up in the, if you look on the stair tread, you see how you got a cross right there? And that, if I didn't have spindles, it would go all the way down, you know, a nice perfect line all the way down the spindles, but sorry, down the railing. But you can see that's up in the hole. You might want to bring it down, you know, you want it right in the center of the hole is the point. And then once you have it there, you look down there and right in that cross section, right where it crosses, you put a little dot right there. And that's how I marked where all the spindles would be. Time consuming, sure. But without this, there's no way. The only other way I could think of was a plumb bob, and I'd still be doing this first set with that. So you have to have one of those. I used it for all the spindles. It's perfect. Again, back to this because I didn't finish. You do the square, set it on here, and then this, basically, you just hit with a hammer. So once it's lined up, again, I left the tape here for this whole project as part as well. You set it on that circle, get it squared, and then you start slamming this thing in. Worked really well. Each hole might, depending on the type of wood you're using, this probably took each one probably 20, 25 taps, sometimes 30, depending on, you know, the section of the wood that you were working on and how dense it was. But you get the idea. Times, I think there were 98 spindles that I had to use. So I got this at Harbor Freight. It's just a square chisel. It comes with, it doesn't work anymore. It comes with a drill bit. So this drill bit used to go inside here. After hitting it with a hammer a million times, you can see how it mushroomed. It won't work anymore, but it doesn't matter. I only needed this part. This is so if you had a drill press, that drill would be inside here, and it would be drilling the hole, and you'd be pulling down on the handle, pressing this into that hole, making the circle a square at the same time. Well, I didn't have a drill press here, and I wasn't going to drill press every single one, but that worked just fine with a hammer. So that's how I did all the spindles. Again, if you guys have any questions, just hit me up on YouTube and I'll answer them as best I can. You know, how do you get the height of all these little decorative things? Once she decided where she wanted it to be, this isn't it, but I'll just give you an example. Just make yourself a template, you know? I mean, this actually is the exact same height. So just make yourself a template and use that for every place that you're gonna use put a decorative thing. Just saves you from trying to measure each and every one. Just get that first measurement, make a little template, and so on. Incidentally, since I'm saying template, I thought that once you measured the distance here, you know, once I used the gauge, the laser level, and got my holes, that maybe the distance from here to that center, distance from here to that center, I could make a template and just do the same all the way down. Well, couldn't, especially on this flight, but couldn't anywhere, really. Because you can see the distance from here to here is less than here. These were relatively close, but if you look all the way up there, every single one of those spindles was off. Now what I had done is I made a template, but I heard this saying, measure twice, cut once. And after I was done marking the tape that I had put on up there, just because I didn't want to start drilling holes and do all that and screw all that up, I went back with the laser level and every one of them was off. And so like, if I had the hole marked here, it was just a little bit here. And then the next one was just a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more, and then eventually it lined up again, and then it went the other way. It was a nightmare, but thankfully, I didn't cut any of those holes. I went back and tried with the laser level, and I got them all lined up right, and we're good to go. So here's these stairs. You can see here, this, remember I was talking about down there, how I cut it, because that step actually is the one that was there. So I kind of copied it. I didn't like that look, so I went with this. Here's another error. So you can see this little piece of wood I put in here. It's just stuck in there. When I took my measurement from the wall to here, I didn't take into account enough the side piece. I call it a reveal, the return. So I was a little bit off here, but essentially I cut it too deep. If any of you carpenters on there could have helped me figure it out, better, please feel free to leave comments. But because every one of these you have to cut off the end. I just cut, looking at it, yeah, I cut too much off the end, which made the step go this way more when it was lined up in order to be tight. And it left a little gap here. I needed to have measurements better. So I measured from skirt board to here, skirt board to this corner, so I could get this square from here to the, I keep calling this skirt board, riser, to this skirt board. And then I needed the return to be tight against the riser. Anyway, as you can see, clearly I screwed that up. Cutting these are kind of difficult as well. And I made the cut right. It was just a little bit too long or too deep. That's why I needed this piece. But when you're cutting this, you have to cut here and you have to cut the other side. But because the saw is round, you have to flip the board over and cut it again. Now you have to measure from as far as you did here to there to the end, and then measure underneath and do the same thing and make a line. So when you have the board flipped over and you're cutting again, you want it to be perfect. You don't want to go too far or whatever. The line, what I mean is, you can see how this is perfectly square here. So I didn't have any cuts going past it, past the square. I just cut it perfectly, but too far. So that's why you have to flip it over, so you don't have any errors like that. Not this error, but just lines that go past the piece of wood. That's how you get that on accident. So you just go right to where your line would stop, flip the wood over, and make sure you had this measurement up top, because the blade probably stopped this far from the edge and you need to finish it the rest of the way. So have this top measurement, go under, flip the board over, draw it all out, and then cut again. And when you flip it over, you should have a perfect line. Now, how do you cut this? So I just kept using the saw and making cuts right to that line. And then I used a Sawzall to carefully cut it all out so you could get this square here. Tedious, takes a while, but it's able to do it. Again, bought another Ryobi tool to do that. So I did all these the same, all these spindles, so on and so forth. You can see this one came out a lot better as I was going up the step. Both sides of these are open, there's no wall. So this is a double returns. They call these double return stairs, because that's the return, again, goes a little bit past the stringer. These were actually easier other than the first step, because I had to make that square cut around the posts, but easier because I didn't have to cut either side off. So I just had to measure, I had to get these perfect on this so that it would get down inside here. Kind of difficult, but I got it done. And you just follow your way all the way up. Did the same. This is the one I was talking about. So I had to drill out, all of your railings will have plugs. You see that screw in there. And so I pulled that, got that screw out, and I was able to lift this up to get these in. I only put one in just to see what it would look like. It was this first one here, and then I screwed it all back down. And I was like, my gosh, I hope I don't have to do this for all of them. Again, this is my first time doing this big of a stair project. But like I said, what I figured out, I just drilled holes up in here about an inch and a quarter. So it didn't go all the way through, obviously, inch and a quarter. That gave me enough room to like slide these up inside, and then drop down into the square holes that I made. That worked perfect. And yeah, no boots. Again, the boots would be on the bottom and they'd look like this. And this just looks more finished to me anyway. All the way up the stairs. Did the same one here. Again, when measuring all of these, and I would advise you, don't just use a template, Clearly you can see how close that is to the wall. Template's not going to be right. They're all going to be off just a little bit. So you have to use the laser in every single one, get a mark on the floor for where you're going to drill, and then use your chisel and make your square. Again, I also drilled these up about 1.25 inches so I could get these spindles up inside. I just finished these ones today. We needed a few extra spindles. Didn't order enough. Fortunately, I didn't screw any of them up. If you do, you can just get more. And that's those. And then this is that upper area I was telling you about that I originally tried to use the template, but it was off. And the funny thing is, I started in the middle, and I don't know why I did. I just started in the middle, and I worked my way with the template this way, worked my way with the template this way, and then before I started doing anything, I was like, just want to check it. And as soon as I did, these were dead on, because that's where I started to get my template. But as I started to move this way, and maybe you stair guys, any of you out there watching, the measurement kept changing. You know, I don't know, 4/16 of an inch. And it kept changing, getting further and further apart and further apart this way. So they would have all been off. And as you can see, I didn't drill any other holes. I used the ones that were there. The only holes I put were the ones that go up a little higher, like I said, 1.25 inches, so I could get them all in without removing the railing. So don't trust templates for spindles on stairs. Just don't do it. Use the laser level. It'll save you the heartache of redoing all that. So I didn't want to have to redo that whole piece of wood, and I didn't have to. Obviously, you need to finish painting, caulking, stuff like that. But ultimately, you know, that's the project. It was 4 flights, and like I said, it took me almost 3 weeks now, just doing it by myself. And yeah, that's it. I'm trying to think of anything else before I let you guys go. You know, some of the tools I used, again, just you're gonna need drills, as I showed you. I don't know what the heck this thing's called, and a lot of people don't. I know the original use of it was for cutting casts off of people back in the day, and then they turned it into a tool. It just kind of vibrates and, you know, cuts things off. I used it numerous times in this project. Obviously hammers. You want to get the force in a bit, like I said. Nail guns. That's the Sawzall. This came in handy because everything that I bought from Ryobi is cordless. All the nail guns are, and I used that for them. That also uses a battery. Kind of, maybe if you left it running, you might get 10 minutes, 15 minutes out of it. But it's all, you're always turning it on and off. It's just for simple cuts or things like that. Maybe you'll get 20 minutes out of it. So just having this whole battery bank is great, because you have plenty of batteries to swap it out and so on. You take one out, stick it back in the charger. It's charging while you're using the fresh one. Again, that track saw, it's a must for this job, because every single one of these cuts has to be precise to get it as tight to the skirt board as it can be, for all of them, all the edges. So you're making 2 cuts. Literally, I had to make 3 for these risers because of the lengths. The heights were different. One other thing I'll say, like, you can see that one's taller than these. It is on every landing. So I was able to not have to rip this one at all, but it still wasn't as long as I needed. No big deal, because the way you're doing it is you're doing your risers first, then you're putting your stairs on and you're bringing your step right to it. So even though that's, you know, it might only have that much going down below this piece of wood, this is not structural at all. It's just, you know, visual. So bringing the step up to it, you're not going to see how much is left down below. And all these cut the same way. And again, to try and get it as tight as you can, that's what the screws are for. Now, depending on what your stairs are like, behind these, some of these were just so you know, stringers are cut different, wood changes shape over time. So I was only able to get them as tight as I possibly could. Some of them, if you couldn't get tighter, you can take a hammer behind here and kind of bash the riser that's already existing forward a little bit before you screw that into it, and that helps out as well. Yeah, I mean, that's the project. I did have one more thing that I wanted to tell you before I let you guys go. I'm just trying to think of it. And, oh, so I have some decorative stuff that's going underneath these. Basically, it's just a piece of trim that's going to go, you know, the whole length, and then down the side. I'm going to probably stop it here. So it's going to go from here to here. And that just, it's decorative, because if you see under the stairs there, depending on how each step is, now you could just fill that with caulking, but I'm going to have a nice piece of trim there, and then anything else that's showing you can just fill with caulking. But that's how you make everything look really nice. Gonna have one crack in there. I'm just gonna run some caulking in that, and I'm not gonna caulk any of these edges of the stairs because I get them pretty tight, and I'm not gonna caulk in front of here either. I want that all nice. It's just the sides, just to clean it up, make it look nice. You know, I'll add some caulking in here, smooth it over, just repaint, all that going all the way up. Same with everything. Already started a little bit, as you can see. Just have to finish, and yeah, you can see right here the gap on the side there, and that's the riser, and you can kind of see the stringer in there. I wonder if I can zoom in. Yeah. And some of these, that's just what you're up against. And it's the way that the stringer's cut inside. You could try and nail that up, this, that, whatever, but it doesn't really matter. I couldn't, obviously, or I would have. And I'm just gonna have a nice piece of trim that goes right under here, finishes that up, and then you'll just have a little piece of caulking there that you'll fill that little gap in, and it won't matter. Not all of them look like that. It just depends on how it was before you got here. So that's basically all I got, guys. I hope that helps you guys. Oops, it's too zoomed in here. I hope that helps you guys. If you have any questions, comments, if you have any other ways I could have done my posts better, please let me know in the comments. For like that one that I made a mistake right there. And like I said, I'm just gonna fix this one and the one on the side there by adding a piece of wood. How I'm gonna do that, like how would you line that up? So what I'm thinking, because like let's say you want to make this perfectly tight to that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole in here, and then I'm going to drill a hole in this, put some glue in a wooden doweling or whatever you call them, and put it tight. Watched one video, guy took a nail and he just set the nail in here, and then you put the other piece of wood and you kind of like hit it with a rubber mallet or something like that. And it's going to make a mark, hopefully on here and there at the same spot, and that's where you can do your drill. So that way you know when you get it tight, you know, it's not going to be a little too low, a little too high. You want it to be nice and perfect. That's how I'm going to do it. Hopefully that works for me. If you guys knew any other better ways, let me know in the comments. But I hope this video helps you guys. Can't really think of anything else. You'll need quite a few tools. And yeah, that's it. I think the video is long enough. So if you got any questions, just hit me up on YouTube. Other than that, happy stairs. Bye, YouTube.